Hey everybody, this is Talking of Carl back again for another TV show spoiler review for the month of Halloween. And today I'll be covering a TV show I really like that only had one season, which is kind of freaking unfortunate because at least had two seasons, because I can definitely see this carrying on. But it's the 2013 TV show that was on NBC called Just Dracula, starring John Rhys Myers, who is like honestly an astonishing cast, given the way it carry himself. It's just like he plays that intimidating. You gotta watch the show. You can get it very cheap on Amazon Prime. It's just one season, 10 episodes, and honestly, this actor is so good at like turning on that intimidation and like charm that kind of, as you expect from somebody like Dracula, to like coax you in with his charm and lull you in a kind of false sense of security, or make you. It's just like he plays 3D chess with you, and it's all done so fluently and so effortlessly that this is like a great cast, honestly. And with the goatee and everything, like this, the suaveness of them, like that's what you expect from a Dracula. He has to be super suave. And John Rhys Myers has done this job perfectly. That's why I'm kind of bummed out, because he was like, honestly, him and the actor who plays Renfield, Nonso Anozie. I could be butchering that. And obviously, it's based off the it's like a different retelling of the Bram Stoker story of Dracula in like the Victoria era. So, like I said, John Rhys Myers plays Dracula, aka Vlad Tepes, aka Alexander Grayson. Jessica D. Gao as Mina Murray / Iana. Thomas Kretschmann as Abraham Van Helsing, who ironically played Dracula in the 2012 Italian horror film Dracula 3D. Victoria Smurfett, almost like Smurfette, as Lady Jane Weatherby, a vampire huntswoman. Oliver Jackson Cohane as Jonathan Harker. Katie McGrath as Lucy Westernra. Ben Miles as Lord Browning. Robert Bathurst as Thomas Davenport. Well, we got like the primary people here that we'll see more often. So, anyway, the whole story is centered around, because normally in a lot of stories, Van Helsing hunts Dracula and ilk of his kind, but in this unique twist, which, given the way how the show ends, was to lead into how we come to know what Van Helsing will do when dealing with Dracula. But here, as the plot goes, there's this Order of the Dragon, which way during during the reign of Vlad Tepes in Wallachia, he was a member of, and he ends up going again, doing blank on doing something where it go, because they got a strict code where you don't put anybody else above the order. The order is comes before anything or anyone. no matter what loved one or whatever. And it obviously has something to do with Iana, the wife. Actually, I'm glad they kind of include historical points, because in my personal opinion, when you're dealing with like Dracula Untold, which is a movie I reviewed, I think last Halloween or the Halloween month before last, one of my favorite Dracula movies, because as I mentioned in that review, which you can find on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Follow me in the links in the description below, share this with your friends, and leave a comment. But as I pointed out in that review, I like when they not only take the whole mythos of Dracula, but they incorporated his historical elements into the narrative. Because historically, Vlad Tepes, who was actually named Dracula, given his horrific atrocities that he's done, like impaling people, and actually had like a whole forest full of impaled corpses on stakes, as like in his own way of a nuclear deterrent against Ottoman invaders and any other kind of armies that try to invade his native land. So I like when they incorporate like some historical elements. He did have a second wife named Iana, so that is very accurate. But the Order then decide his punishment just by death wouldn't suffice, so they use this kind of black blood magic to turn him into one of the most deadliest vampires in fictional history. And me personally, and this is my take, I don't know how anybody else feels, but I personally believe that certain supernatural mythological beings like vampires actually do exist. That's just how I personally feel, because there are certain things that people, sure, it might have been exaggerated through the course of time, but it all has to originate somewhere, and there has to be some thing or being that people had witnessed that was charted down or told and then charted down by other folks, of witnessing somebody who bites people's neck, drains them of the blood for sustenance, or werewolves, or because we already know ghosts exist. We see like ghost hunters and all these exorcisms and stuff like that happening, and people tell you about those things all the time. So clearly ghosts and demons exist, so why the freak not somebody like vampires or werewolves wouldn't exist? So I'm willing to buy it. I think Bigfoot and the Abominable Snowman definitely exist. So that's just me. But so they end up turning him into the most deadliest threat ever. You thought he was like a serious threat as a human being. Like, it was kind of like a dumb thing to do. It's kind of like in like the Brandon Fraser mummy films when they cursed Imhotep. Why would you give this man the most horrible curses in the world, at least according to your native land, that by some hope that nobody digs this guy up? Because if they do, he become like a walking disease with power of plagues and stuff like that. Why would you give him this freaking curse? There's another movie, Brendan Fraser's Mummy 1 and 2, I did review as well, so check that out on the channel. As a matter of fact, now I'm thinking about it, I think maybe next year I want to review like the classic kind of like Bela Lugosi Dracula and like Boris Karloff Mummy. I vaguely remember watching like Boris Karloff. No. I mean like uh the the cliche Bela Lugosi Dracula. Kind of want to check that out because I vaguely remember seeing it as a kid, but never got into it. But I definitely want to check out the original Mummy film and give my thoughts on that. That's something I really want to actually want to check out. You know, those classic black and white films. But anyway, so they give him this stupid curse that makes him like a huge threat that very little can actually harm him. But they end up burying him. But then at some point along the line, years down the line, getting towards like the Victorian era, Abraham Van Helsing and this other gravedigger finds the tomb of Dracula, and given how the coffin or sarcophagus is designed, where it has like a little like you see like the image of this ghoulish monster on the top of the coffin, has a mouth opening where Van Helsing slits the guy's throat thinking they're gonna rob like riches, which is kind of almost historically, you know, mixed with that after, because historically Vlad Tepes died on the battlefield, and when he was buried days later, somebody tried to rob his tomb hoping to get like jewels or whatever. They unearthed it, body was never found, no one knew where it went. But I guess it kind of coincides with this, where it's like, oh, Abraham Van Helsing got to it, and then he slashed the throat of this guy, this other gravedigger, who's hopes to like kind of rob the tomb and get some kind of riches. That's what he was promised. The blood drifts into the sarcophagus, the mouth of the sarcophagus or coffin, and it starts to revive Dracula, only for a little bit, just long enough for Van Helsing to take like a cross dagger, nail Dracula to the ground by his foot, and makes like a deal with him, because Van Helsing was part of the order. He broke one of their rules and went against the order, and as a result, the current leader of the order decided to not only burn down his house, but have him watch as the place is burning down with his wife and children inside. So now they both, you know, have a mutual enemy. And I love this show because there's not necessarily a good guy involved in this. There's Mina, it's probably the only one that actually is any kind of shred of decency in this entire film, which is, you know, it's like, you know, she was like her and her father is probably like a good, like, you know, well, you could say Jonathan Harker too, but he has like a fall from grace kind of situation because of Dracula. But Mina and her father is probably like the only decent main characters that we follow that, you know, hold any type of like, humanity, you know, metaphorically and physically. But everybody else has some type of agenda that you don't necessarily like want to agree with, and it's like it's built where you like want Dracula to win in some cases. This is a mark of a good storytelling and good writing, and it's kind of like a bummer this didn't continue. At least get another season, because it's so interesting. Uh, so, uh, but Van Helsing, who in most cases has always been like the good guy in these, retellings of Dracula, and in this he's like, super revenge seeking. He, you know, he's willing to make a deal with the devil or the son of the devil or son of the dragon in order to enact his revenge on the person and the organization that helped murder his family. It's kind of like the Punisher in a way, except he has like a focal grievance to anybody even tangentially associated with his organization and the person responsible. But by the end, he goes probably further than even what Frank Castle would be willing to even allow. But we'll get to that soon. So, now, sometime later, not too long, but enough time, it's like at least maybe a good decade, as stated, when somebody tried to do research on Alexander Grayson, which he goes by in public, playing like an American, moved to London to build this new kind of wireless power source, which is kind of wild given the fact that I'm pretty sure we definitely had wireless, electronics back in 2013 when this show came out. But it was set around the time where like Thomas Edison was name dropped, would be around and making because Vlad tried to get him to like finance his project, where he declined given like I guess the certain technical issues that might arise that he wouldn't necessarily be on board with, and safety measures or something or other. But he's essentially doing this not only to staking claim as like the a sole proprietor of this renewable resource. He's also putting members of the order out of business because each one is connected to like oil and military applications, all sorts of things that in the long run is a detriment to people, but it's how they get their money and become like powerful members of society and do whatever they think they want to. So their plans is crippling these guys financially, so that way they're too they, since they don't have any out there money and power, they'll be easy pickings for him to just do whatever with. And also, he also has a scheme. Vlad has a scheme in order to have Van Helsing concoct this machine and formula, which is kind of like a solar enzyme, where he's Van Helsing is which it doesn't get through until maybe like 4 episodes in, where he's essentially reanimating Vlad. Sorry, after through some like experimentations and some testing Vlad's blood in order to pulling through this contraption in order to get Vlad for at least, as told, up to the point of maybe 4 hours max, so he can actually survive in the sunlight. So that way he can, lead, further lead people on. Because when he gets suspected of being a possible vampire by the Order and Lady Jane, who's their, head huntswoman, they they laid this. It's almost my favorite episode where when it finally works. I mean, well, it didn't work. It gives him like a limited time, and as soon as he just steps out, when they kind of force the situation where he's kind of like set up some kind of meeting because he's like ahead of the board, so he actually had to come. Otherwise, if he doesn't, he forfeits his seat. So he's forced, and it's kind of like some put pressure on Van Helsing to get this thing to work at least for a little bit, so he can take suspicion off of him. And that moment is really awesome, where he's just a step out and just embraces sunlight. And there's no telling how long he's been, at the table in the middle of, in this courtyard kind of situation, instead of in like an office building. But whatever, I thought that was kind of weird. But he's sitting at his table, is having this meeting, business, paperwork. And, Browning and the huntswoman was like all astonished, like, oh my god, he must not be a vampire because he's walking out in broad daylight, no clouds and nothing. And it's like wow, it is just really good. There's an awesome scene. But Renfield, who we'll get to Renfield in a minute, but he's like monitoring the time, and he's like, we gotta go. And so he's like, he's pushing it with the time limit, and Davenport tried to talk with him on the sidebar about something, and it's like, don't worry, we got this. And you see on his right cheek, which he's trying to conceal, like, look, don't worry, we got this, don't worry. And they end the carriage ride nearly at his home, and he's like in the cart screaming, like you see him, like his skin is burning. It was like it was an intense moment, but it was like one of my favorite episodes in the season. But anyway, Renfield, probably like the best Renfield, my other, like this, and like Nicholas Hoult in the Renfield movie. These two variations on the character of Renfield, who's like the servant of and right hand of Dracula. It's probably my best interpretation of Renfield, because this Renfield is played like, stoic, kind of like Alfred in a lot of Batman stories, where he's not like, I'm glad they kind of went a different direction with Renfield this time, where he's not like sniveling, like, yes, master, yeah, yes, master, I'm coming. It's none of that little twerpy little stuff. No, it's like it, and if, he's carrying himself dignified and reserved, intelligent, and it's like, I'm here to do business here. It's like, and the fact that he calls him sir, even though he tells everybody to call him by his first name, he, as he, Vlad points out, it's like he does this just to annoy me. And he's willing to stand up to Dracula when he knows, like, hey, you can't rush into this thing, you're gonna blow up the whole plan. I am not gonna let you go out there and cause a mass, like, just, act on impulse. I can't. And it's like literally tussling with, Dracula and breaking stuff. But he convinces him to like not leave the premises in that mood. So I love this interpretation. I do love Nicholas Hoult because he kind of sticks up for himself, because it's a story about, oh man, I don't know if I ever did I do like a spoiler review on Renfield? Because I don't think I did. Because maybe it's something I need to do next year as well. Because the story about toxicity, like, toxic relationships. Yeah, I did. Uh, yeah, I did. Like this, early this April, like a few days before my birthday. Yeah, so you can check out. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna put that on the list of my Halloween movie reviews, because as I did. Oh, I did already. Good. I was thinking. Uh, but it was an awesome movie, and that interpretation of Renfield is very good too. And you know, slowly but surely, Renfield in that movie got to the point of sticking up for himself and taking on Dracula. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, Renfield become part of Dracula's inner circle, because during the 10 years up to the point of the story continuing in this season, he's trying to acquire riches and influence. He started in America, which, like I said, John Rhys Meyers, I'm pretty sure he's from the UK. No, he's Irish, so yeah, kind of in the UK. And he so effortlessly flip-flops between American and his native tongue of, well, let's say British, but Bolikian, I guess you would call it. But it's just like I love like raspy, like it's just Jonathan Harker. It's like, Jonathan Harker, welcome. And then go see what Renfield. Go see what what's Van Helsing's taking him so long. It's taking him so bloody long. Mina Harker, the blushing bride, come here, give me a hug. And it's like that flip, and he just like goes in and out with it, and it's like I really love that. It's kind of like, it reminds me of Kevin Conroy, R.I.P. to the legend, where I remember in an episode of Batman animated series where it's like it's kind of freaks me out, to this day, how like eerie that he does this, where he's dressed as Batman. He gets a phone call that he has to take with Lucius Fox, and he goes in full silhouette while he answers the phone, and he just talks like normal Bruce Wayne. And it's like, I don't know what, it just eerie's to me. It's like he's in this Batman, he's in the Batcave in his Batman costume, and he's casually talking like Bruce Wayne, and it's like, oh yeah, sure, Lucius, sure, I'll be right there. And it's like the eyes don't blink, he just stares off, stares on a certain direction, and his whole face is in full silhouette. He's on the phone, and it's, I don't know, it's just the way that his design is, coming across like this dude. Yeah, that's the first time I actually took the moment to like, yeah, Batman's probably a little. It's like, yeah, he's definitely a little not right in the head in certain cases. We tend to forget that. I mean, he's not like any of these villains, but in current Batman comics, I'm getting off a tangent, but current Batman comics, he's really kind of going off the deep end a little bit with the whole Zero-Nas situation, which I think I want to plan on covering fairly soon whenever the arc ends, because it kind of coincides with the the last Batman arc that I covered on the channel, which you can check out as well. Is the failsafe arc. It kind of ties into that situation, and that Zero-Nas persona that tries to deal with failsafe but didn't work. But now, since Batman let it loose, and it's now coming back to bite him in the ass kind of situation. But like I said, I'll get into that whenever that arc wraps up, and I can really dive into, because it's kind of interesting, but it kind of really like making like Batman look like it's like it's I won't say ruined the reputation of Batman, but you kind of like, I don't know, gotta see where the arc ends, because right now it's like, in there's moments I like and there's other moments like, do we really need this? Is the whole Tower of Babel situation is kind of like, or like the Civil War in Marvel, where it's kind of like you're purposely trying to ruin the reputation of beloved characters in order to feed the narrative, where it doesn't seem organic. It seems out of character for this character, and you kind of like abuse this kind of, you know, kind of narrative that should be done and over with. You milk that cow to his last drop at this point. Anyway, so there's, you know, tit for tat with Grayson. Well, I'm going to like Renfield, former slave. I'm glad he's making a black man, as I think, because he adds some bit of color to this, you know, situation instead of like a lily white cast. I think it was a smart choice. Former slave. He because of his intelligence, they, you know, somebody like, you know, try to, you know, like, you know, send him to this, getting his higher education. He wasn't, you know, or this field of office, given his level of knowledge. They, you know, denied him. People who backed him backed out. So now he's on this train working as like a bartender for these racist cowboys. And while Dracula as Grayson is trying to broker a deal by throwing like a bag of gold to them to try to buy assets from this you know, Colonel Sanders looking dude. And of course they try to like they try to attempt to strong arm this guy, but not knowing what they're getting into. Renfield steps up trying to defend this guy, a complete stranger he doesn't know, shows the strength of this guy's character. And it's like he's trying to warn him, like, these men tend to kill you. And of course these cowboys begin to like beat on this guy, so Vlad goes full vampire mode and slaughters all these guys, rips the head off the Colonel Sanders dude, and decides to take Renfield under his wing, as since he has like a knowledge of the law and technically has like a lawyer, you know, degree. So he is able to like actually practice law and things like that to help him with his anything legal with Vlad. They had this kind of like, you know, Batman and Alfred kind of relationship going on, where it's like mutual understanding and respect and honesty between each other. But Vlad is still like his boss. Even to the point where you can argue they are friends. At one point, when because during because as soon as like the pilot episode where Alexander is making this big presentation, his, you know, first soft opening or debut of his wireless, you know, power, and hands random people, including this reincarnation of Iana under Mina, and there's hand them all these light bulbs. And of course this is archaic kind of machines, but underneath this building they are powering up the machine, where it's harnessing electricity to power up these light bulbs without any connection with wires or anything, which, you know, wows everybody. But he promises you know, something on a larger scale, which worries, you know, the few order members who are attending. It's like, okay, you know, they kind of brush it off, don't think it's this is going to get off the ground, but they'll keep monitoring because they don't want to, because if obviously people want renewable clean energy, they'll put fossil fuels out of business. Can't have that. But as soon as he lays eyes on Mina, everything comes crashing back in his memories with his past wife, now reincarnated somehow. And he starts making steps to be close to her by investing in the relationship of Harker and Mina. Even when they had a fight, he convinces her to, thinking he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart. And Rainfield points out to him, it didn't really do it out of the goodness of her heart, because if they break up, she has no reason to show up around here no more, because she only pops up because Harker is around. And if they still, because he eventually gets Harker in his employ because he worked at the Inquisitor newspaper, and now he's under Vlad's employ as a kind of like a public relations kind of job title. But in actuality, he's using Harker in order to get information on how to not, if whatever criminal activities they, these order members are doing, he's not really interested in that. He wants to hurt and cripple them, and knows all the dirty little secrets. Even the fact that Davenport's son, because a lot of them hold shares to certain things and they can't give up certain assets because that goes against the order. So Davenport's son and like they do a wonderful job on how displaying, like, even back then there's always been like homosexual people all throughout history. They didn't just pop up in the 21st century. So they actually had this underground kind of like a speakeasy type of place where men congregate to have intimate time with each other. Even having a man dress in drag and performing and stuff like that. It's like, it isn't played cheesy. It's played like, no pun intended, they played it straight. And like, it isn't cheesy or offensive or anything like that. It's very good. And so showing like the maniacal chess match Vlad is doing against these guys, where it's like, oh, thanks to Harker, I know that one of the order member leaders has a son who has a secret boyfriend who's also on the member of the council that has shares that I want to acquire. He's not giving to me no matter what money that I try to throw at him. So I'm gonna, threaten to expose him, because he walks in on this little secret club and he's just like tells him point blank, look, I don't care, like whoever people choose to lay with, I have no problem with that. I don't care. But I think his family would care, and I think your wife and children would care. So he, in fear of, because he knows that going against the order will mean he signs his own death warrant, but the fear of having a gay lover is more frightening to him, because it goes to show, like, a lot of people back then would have rather die than be found out having like a secret love affair with the same sex. I think people would rather be found out having like a secret love affair with the opposite sex is not their significant other. It'll be less damaging than what happens. So the son of Davenport is so distraught, he ends up deleting himself, writing a note about what really went on but his father keeping that to himself and used that to go on this personal vendetta against Alexander. And so he ends up not only kidnapping Renfield, but also finding this old portrait painting of Ileana that Grayson's been searching for many years. And this goes to show that, you know, Renfield is not just his employee. They actually cultivated a friendship. And the fact that when he finds out that somebody kidnaps and hurts him, Renfield, he, you know, eventually finds out, thanks to Harker and like finding the drop notebook that Renfield carries around. And it's like he sniffs it, and it's kind of like funny that nobody notices, you know, Grayson on the ground in front of this building where Renfield was last seen. He's on the ground sniffing it, and it's like, yeah, vampires essentially has heightened senses, so like it wouldn't be too hard for him to pick up the trail. And so he eventually tracks down Renfield, and as soon as he finds the hideout, he goes on a freaking slaughter and just ripping arms off, ripping out throats, and just destroys anybody there. And he shows, like, you know, you say, like, you know, like technically he doesn't have a heart, he has a dead heart, but he still has emotion, you know, because you know, vampires still feel emotion. So he's tending to Renfield, like nursing his wounds, because it shows the level of care he has as a man who always been there for him. And it's just like, I like this relationship. It's a complete polar opposite of what we've seen from the Renfield movie, where, you know, Dracula, more often than not, in most iterations, treats Renfield like a complete tool to be abused whenever. Here, this is like a mutual respect and friendship. So, there's also Mina's friend Lucy. In a lot of situations, Lucy ends up getting turned into a vampire by Dracula, but here, Lucy has a secret, you know, crush on Mina. And it's eating her up inside because she can't, like, every time she sees, I mean, we all probably been there. We all, you know, like, is somebody that you care, really have like a secret feelings for, but them watching somebody else spending time with them and making out with them is just a level of like this bitterness that she feels. It kind of bubble ups to the point where Lady Jane, who had a secret relationship with Grayson this whole time, and she eventually start taking notice that Grayson has some feelings for Mina. And so in order to hurt him, they've decided, like, oh, I'll just blow all that spot up by getting Lucy to, like, just, oh, she has a fear. It's like, she doesn't know how to, you know, she's so pent up, and it's like she doesn't know how to express it. It's just like, you gotta, you know, like, just, you know, like, just embrace her. Don't show her that she's had nothing to fear and stuff like that. It's manipulation. That's what I say. Like, hardly anybody here is a good person, except for maybe a couple of people. There's also like some vampires we see along the way. One that's I forgot his name, but it's like, you know, one of the oldest, and not too old, but one vampire that Vlad sired many years ago that's always been like his right hand. And given the fact that his brash nature, and at this early point of the season might blow up Vlad's spot. And Renfield kind of warns, Renfield points out to him, like, I don't like this guy. He isn't like tactful, and it's like he's becoming like a danger. And the fact that he knows about Mina looking like his old wife, and it's like it's like, take her. It's like, and like, although Renfield did point out that he keeps telling Vlad, like, hey, look, you got two options: either leave her alone or just take her. He didn't say turn her. I think like the vampire pointed out, like, you just turn her. But Renfield points out, just either take her or leave her alone, because your obsession with her is starting to screw with the plan. And of course, like, Mina has hopes to be like a doctor, so she's studying under the tutelage of Van Helsing, who's playing this professor. And she's starting to grow suspicious about certain vials of blood that obviously is Vlad's blood, that Abraham is like using it for tests and stuff like that. But she, after Abraham kind of put her at ease, she's like kind of left it alone, when she thought it was kind of weird, how it reacts to certain organisms. Oh God, what else is going on? This is so much went on. I'm trying to, like, keep track, because there's a lot of machinations. Oh, you talking about like playing chess. In order to secure his relationship with Lady Jane, he tricks his old vampire friend into he's like, his friend trying to, hey, this Lady Jane, this huntswoman, she attacked a couple of my crew and I barely made it out. We gotta deal with her. And Vlad, with tears in his eyes, thinking it's for Lady Jane, is probably more so for his long vampire friend that he always counted on, but knowing he's being reckless and he's not listening, so it tears in his eyes, like, make her scream. And so as the guy sneaks in while Lady Jane is sleeping, Vlad breaks in and attacks him and tackles him to the ground. Doesn't really use much of his strength to overpower him, which he could easily do. This tussle wakes up Lady Jane, and she attacks and kills the vampire, which secures her feelings for Grayson. It's like, oh my God, you saved me from the intruder. And he pretends like he doesn't know, like, what happened to the intruder, what's going on. And it's like, oh, don't worry, I got you, I got it. He's gone now. It's like, and it's like, man, this dude is slick. Like I said, he's playing all these different kind of chess moves. It's phenomenal. It's really good. Yeah. So along the way, things bubble up with Lucy, where with Harker starting to realize that after Mina nearly got assaulted by Davenport's henchmen, after he's trying to seek revenge against what happened to his son. Those men get completely slaughtered by Dracula, and Mina ends up in the hospital again, nursed. And Harker wants to go to police to, like, because he knows that one of the henchmen was somebody of Davenport's employ, and Dracula very strategically, not so subtle words, and kind of because he knows how to move people in the right areas the way he wants them to move. It's so slick. And it's like, you can't go to the police. They own the police. It's your word against his. And it's like, play a smart man and use certain words. And it's like, because he's so distraught, angry that his fiance got hurt and he wasn't there, so he took it upon himself to go find Davenport, hold a gun to him, and then after Davenport is trying to tell Harker that there's more to the story than meets the eye, try to show him the painting, the gun went off, he's dead, and now he sees this painting and it's like, oh my god, what the heck is going on? All the while, at this point, he becomes disillusioned with Alexander Grayson, who set him up in this nice place, gave him this job, and it's like all it's just been, machinations for something that he truly wants. And he's starting to think like, oh, he wants my fiance. And she's slowly starting to have feelings for Grayson. And she's starting to have certain dreams and hallucinations about her past self, which further drives her closer to Dracula's arms. So after realizing, oh, like I'm just being manipulated by this guy, and I did some digging, and like prior to 10 years, there hasn't been any record of this guy. So there's something going on. That's when Browning, leader of the order, is try to get him to try to recruit Harker into their fold in order to get further closer to Vlad's machine, to try to not only just destroy it but turn into a complete catastrophe by planning causing it to explode in order to make sure that nobody will attempt this ever again, to further seal their station as like the energy superpower, which caught Harker by surprise. Like, oh my god, like we mean boom. It's like, we think it was like we gotta like completely like wreck this thing. And it's like, oh, I thought it was just gonna make it malfunction. Like, you buy these, people call the Order of the Dragon. We think what they're about, man. Because Harker has played like a complete tool. I want to say complete tool. He's too easily manipulated, in my opinion. It's not that he doesn't ask questions, but he lead with like knee-jerk emotions from time to time. So he gets involved with the Order. Then Lucy, after a fight between like Harker, because she flirts or entices Harker, which sends his head into a world, trying to drive a wedge between her and him so she can just be with her. But clearly she spurned that because she doesn't have feelings for Lucy, obviously. But after the fight and distraught between Harker and Mina, he shows up at Lucy's house. They end up having sex, but next day he leaves without saying a word, and she, Lucy ends up coming clean. This kind of really messes up everything between the relationship. Obviously, the wedding's completely off. So things are coming to a head when Lady Jane gathering all these different types of vampire or monster hunters around the world, including a seer who has like this blood of Christ on this, obviously supposed to be like a shred of the shroud that covered Jesus as after he died on the cross. It is held to use to help like channel the powers of a seer in order to locate, you know, every vampire in London, so they can, you know, strategically attack certain key spots in order to annihilate any reinforcements that Vlad will probably have on deck. There were these twins, these other seers, these Indian people, these twins that were seers underneath Lady Jane's employ. They tried to like use a mirror to find this powerful vampire, but because Dracula is so powerful and so old, he knows he's being watched, and he just kind of like forces that power back into him, which is scaring the heck out of them, which further kind of like alludes to a powerful vampire. And I'm so glad they actually, you get to see Vlad impales people, where those three guys that tries to attack Mina, not only he attacks them, but he impales their corpses on a fence. This is like, yes, we have to see that. Why wouldn't you have a story about Vlad the Impaler Dracula without him actually impaling somebody? At least see it, because it has to be there. It's part of his repertoire. It's like, you know, watching or reading a Batman thing and you don't see a batarang. It's weird not to see it. Blah blah blah. You know, after, you know, like Vlad finds out from Mina about what Lucy did, and this upsets her, and like anything that upsets her, he goes into a freaking rage. So he sneaks into Lucy's house, and instead of just killing her, he turns her into a vampire, which by the end of the season, like, you know, takes hold, and she ends up killing her own mom. And of course, like, eventually this powerful seer finally tracks who the actual Dracula is, and is Grayson, and which kind of astonishes and shocks Lady Jane, because, you know, she been discounting this theory all this time. She ends up, you know, after the catastrophe with the machine, she went head to head with Dracula, and it's kind of like, you know, Dracula is ultimately the bad guy, but none of these other people are good either. So it's like, it's, you know, hard to root for anybody here. You want to root for Dracula just by extension, because you're also rooting for Mina, who's the only good person in this entire show, or at least it had like a better soul than anybody else in the show. And of course, Vlad ends up coming on top and, you know, killing Lady Jane, even though he telling her like he wants her just go live, but she won't back away, so he has to do what he has to do. Also, Van Helsing, I gotta get back to him. He goes off the deep end, despite his efforts in trying to, you know, get, you know, Vlad his little solar enzyme thing, but not listening to any instructions or warnings from Abraham, and, you know, kept like, you know, they're bickering and disagreeing, things like that. So he decides to, like, you know, okay, I'm just going to get my revenge all myself, because clearly working with you has just become too much of a headache. So halfway through, like a little over halfway through the season, Abraham kidnaps Browning's children, keep them sedated in this kind of abandoned warehouse. Eventually he sends this kind of ransom note to Browning and his wife in order to meet to find like the location to send them this $50,000, I think it was, in order to get your children back. He goes to the location, he sets a trap, and shows that, like, and he goes how evil Browning is, because Abraham finally reveals himself, like, you know, you murdered my family. And Browning's like, do you realize how little that narrows it down? So, and this is kind of like a sick thing that, you know, Abraham did. The fact that even despite, like, because Van Helsing, I mean, Vlad, you know, episode 2 ago, after the whole city is going into a whole world, when it gets out that Browning's kids, who's Browning's kind of like a very, you know, important person in the city, and once word got out that his children have been missing, and, you know, knowing that how Abraham feels about this particular guy, it's like, you know, Browning's kids are missing. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Because having something like that would, you know, put too much eyes on us, because of how he feels about us and his suspicion about us. You can't have that. You know, if you have anything to do about it, I will advise you to rectify that, because if you don't, you will have a bad day. So it's not like, you know, he really cares for the kids, but the fact that it put unneeded notice on him, especially this crucial point of, you know, getting this machine to work. So instead of like releasing these kids, he leads this man to this warehouse where he sees his kids below and they're alive, but he, you know, Abraham used Vlad's blood, injects it into these kids, turning them into vampires that starts to attack Browning. And then he burns down the warehouse. On his way back, after Renfield's going around looking for him, sees him destroying the machine and all the chemicals that, you know, they spent all this time cultivating, to the point where he could, you know, get Vlad to walk out in the sun, because he wants to walk like a normal man. That's his kind of dream, to not having to hide from the daylight. So Renfield trying to, you know, make sense of what's going on. Then Abraham attacks him, stabs him in the gut. Is never, you would think he's lying there, oh, he's bleeding to death, and this whole place is about to burn down from all this destruction that, you know, Abraham's like burning all the paperwork and, you know, everything else that he used in order to build this whole entire operation to get like Vlad to the point where he can walk in sunlight for a few hours. All that is going up in smoke. So you don't know what's going on, what's going to happen with Renfield. But then Mina sees this picture inside, this painting inside Vlad's house, realizing, oh, you know, somehow I always knew, because I see her in my dreams reaching out to me. They end up, you know, making love. Then the season ends with Harker answering Abraham's message, where he, you know, asks like Harker, like, do you want to take down Grayson? Well, first of all, that's not his real name. His real name is Dracula, and that's where it ends. And it's like, dang, man, it's like at the very least, we knew, like, at some point, I'm pretty sure they tried to get like a second season, but it's like he knew at a certain point where it's like, oh wow, it's like, I don't know, maybe the audience wasn't there, I don't know, because it was like a great show. I kind of wish they got another season, at least give them another season to finish out the story, because obviously Bram Stoker ends with Dracula dying at the hands of Harker, as I remember. So man, it's a really good show. I highly recommend it. Obviously it's made back in 2013, so I highly doubt there will be any kind of revival, true revival, but man, it's a really good show. I really enjoyed rewatching it at this, because like I remember rewatching it decades ago. I think this would probably be my third or fourth time rewatching this show because it's a fun, good drama and thriller and horror. And I'm not much of a horror guy, but every once in a while, there's always good ones. It's like that. It's not like gratuitous slasher jump scare bullcrap. I like those classic horror movie monster type of stuff. Anyway, if you remember this show at all, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of 2013 Dracula show. If not, highly recommend you check out the entire 10 episode season and then come back and let me know what you thought. Sorry to point out like certain like cons. Like I said, like I don't like the fact that like Harker is kind of such a I won't say gullible, but it's like he's too easily misled or like manipulated. But you are dealing with an ancient being that's probably used to doing this, so but then again, it's no excuse with the other people who like Browning manipulating him. It's like, guys, it's like you don't know any better. But anyway, I will see you guys in a couple of days with a couple of new movies that I'll be reviewing for more Halloween stuff. And I'm trying to get through this John Constantine comic because I want to review that. Then I got a couple of short comics I want to get into before the month is over. Some Zatanna and Dr. Fate. Again, too, like this is like some DC stuff here. So anyway, I will see you all soon. Take care. Have a great night. Peace.